And from New York, it's Ask an Engineer.
Hey everybody, it's my favorite hour of the week. It's my time with Phil when we talk to you about what's happening in the maker community. New products, news, videos, guides, NPIs. It's all here on Ask an Engineer.
That's right.
So why don't you tell them what's on tonight's show?
On tonight's show, we're going to be talking about operating safe and smart. We are shipping. Thank you so much, everyone, for supporting us when you place an order pre-COVID photos. We thank you, everyone at Adafruit. We're here in New York City. New York City news, lowest positivity rate since the start. So everybody's been masking up. People are getting tested.
That's right.
And we swabbed Adafruit, no COVID. So we've been operating kind of in the future. Whatever's happening here is the future. So I can tell you, it's not easy running a business, but we are doing it, and we're making stuff. USA, manufacturer, woman-owned company.
Your orders help.
Place orders.
Please.
Because that is what keeps us going.
And we got some great new stuff.
Yeah. On tonight's show, we'll be talking about show and tell, people around the world showing and sharing their projects and more. Talk about JP's workshop, some coming soon, and Makecode Minute. We've got some CircuitPython news, and then we're going to do the video version of the newsletter, Python on Hardware, towards the end of the show. Some time travel, look around the world, makers, hackers, artists, engineers, and we'll also do some learn guides. We have some made in New York City factory footage, some 3D printing. We got some DigiKey plus Adafruit Ion MPI, a new product introduction brought to you every week by DigiKey and Adafruit. We got some new products. We're going to answer your questions. We do that over on Discord, adafruit.it/Discord.
Yep.
We can join all 24,000 of us.
Oh, new graphic.
All that and more on, you guessed it, Ask an Engineer.
Yes. Oh, we got a packed show tonight.
Yeah, we got a lot of stuff going on.
Let's do this thing.
Okay, well, first up, just a reminder. If you want to see what we do, adafruit.com/opensafely. You can also just go to adafruit.com and there's a little banner up at the top.
We've been doing this for like 5 months.
5 months. We publish all of our safety protocols, and we publish them from the start.
That's right.
And, knock on wood or whatever, still proud to say, we're 5 months in, 100 and...
Knock on a MERV filter.
60 plus days, and no Adafruit team member has tested positive. No one's gotten sick. A bunch of us took antibody tests, and we didn't even have any antibodies, so we weren't even exposed to it. We've been operating as safe as possible, and we think that matters. If we take this seriously, then you know your product that you're getting was cared for just as much when it was being designed and thought about and made and shipped. So we're continuing.
No cut corners.
No cut corners, and we didn't do any layoffs or furloughing or cut hours or pay cuts or anything. In fact, today was payroll. We were able to do it. And we're still operating as a loan-free, venture capital-free company, not opposed to it, but we didn't do it. And we've managed to survive this long. So in case you're wondering out there, folks are like, well, should I start a hardware business? Should I do open source software? Should I do open source hardware? If a woman-owned manufacturing company in New York City can still manage to survive during the biggest financial devastation and health devastation, pandemic devastation, the city that got hit first the worst.
Yeah.
We can do it, you can too. So Adafruit was built in the last, they called it the Great Recession, 2008. That's when we really figured out, hey, this is what we want to do, and that's when we really grew.
Yep.
So I guess in stock market terms they say bullish. It is going to be tough, but now is the time to start thinking about how we can rebuild better.
Yeah.
So, speaking of, lots of people are building better and showing and sharing their stuff every week. Lady Ada, who is on the show and tell, and what did they share this week?
I'm glad you asked. This is not in any particular order, but just because I wrote them down beforehand. Jepler came by and showed off an SI5351 triple output clock variant. He took our open source files and he modified them to add a trinket and an external clock input. And he's like, open source works. He imported the EagleCAD into KiCad or KiCad. And he said it worked great. And he designed hardware based on our hardware. And that's what it's all about. Sharing hardware. Colin showed off a new synthesizer he's making using the M4 Feather, dual DAC output, and a pretty cool like Canon keycap grid of 4x4 keys or 5x5 keys. Erin has some new wire wrap necklaces that she's making. They're glowing necklaces. She's using old hardware in her bin, like a trinket or a gemma or a flora even, and experimenting on how to make very thin resin cast necklaces. So there'll be a guide soon. Melissa did a whole bunch of display work this week. She wrote a guide on the new e-ink bonnet. So that's very exciting. Thank you, Melissa. She's been doing a great job taking care of all the displays here at Adafruit. And she's also been working on adding to our old Sharp Memory display guide photos and code for the new Sharp Memory display that we have, the 2.7 inch, which we'll show off in the new product section. And also, we have Display I/O support now in CircuitPython for it, thanks to Jepler. Paint Your Dragon showed off some electronic eyes from Halloween goodies that are available now. So the electronic eyes, he's been doing them for years, and we've refined them from using a Teensy to using Itsy Bitsy to then making the Halloween to then the monster masks. We've improved on eye technology, but now he's seeing a low-cost version of the eyes in Halloween decorations, and he wrote a guide all about his discoveries. I don't want to ruin it because it's not what you think. Check out his guide. None and Pedro have an 8x8 pixel display. We'll have a video for that. It looks cool. They made like a grid offset and are using LED acrylic for a really nice display. So a beautiful little desk toy. And JP made a Bitcoin display. He's doing more RGB matrix projects with a Metro M4. We recently got a new supplier of RGB matrices, which allowed us to cut our prices on many of them by quite a bit. So we're doing a lot of RGB matrix projects to get people excited about these now less expensive displays. Liz came by and showed off some animations she had with Party Parrot. She's been playing with Display I/O and sprite animations using Display I/O on CircuitPython. Nick came by with a really cool project. He's got 2 kids, and they use the internet, and their biggest nightmare is the internet goes away. So he made internet kill switches, which is a wireless device that uses a Pi Zero with the battery pack. And when he presses the button, the Pi Zero logs into the house firewall and blocks the kids' MAC addresses at the firewall level so they don't get internet access. And so he's using this as both a fun trick to see if they can get through it and maybe also a unique type of discipline. I know I would be terrified if the internet was ever taken away from me. And then Mark came by, talked about how he published an e-ink guide. He says he was inspired by all the guides that we write to publish a guide, which is awesome. I love it when other people write guides. It means I don't have to do it. And also 3D printed a large version of his backlit lithopane. That's a wedding gift. And that's who was on Show and Tell.
All right. Show and Tell is part of our Adafruit Live series of shows. Every week, 7 p.m., Show and Tell. And every week, Ask an Engineer. You're watching it right now. Every Sunday, around 8 o'clock-ish, we have Desk of Lady Ada. And in Desk of Lady Ada, every week we have a new segment called The Great Search. And it's where Lady Ada uses all of her skills to search on the DigiKey site. Check that out.
You might learn some stuff.
Yeah. Tomorrow, Thursday, JP's going to have JP's workshop. And here's a little bit of preview of what you're going to see on tomorrow's show. This is Bitcoin price counter made with electronics. And every single week on JP's workshop, we have Makecode Minute. Take it away, JP.
For the Makecode Minute today, I wanted to build essentially a pitch pipe for tuning a ukulele. Now, this is not a tuner in that it's not going to tell us when we have the right notes, but it's instead going to give us a reference pitch so that we can then tune the strings by ear. So here's my daughter's ukulele. So what I've got is this little Circuit Playground Express, and when I press the A button, it's going to cycle through those notes for us. And then if we want to just play one of those notes while we're tuning, we can use the 4 capacitive touchpads here. let's take a look at how I built this in Makecode. You can see here I have an array that I build on start that is the array of my 4 pitches. There's my little note to myself, G, C, E, A. So these are those pitches in hertz. And then I have a variable that I created called note, and that's essentially which string we're on, which note we're playing. And here you can see every time we press the A button, I first blank the pixels, turn them black. Then I set the pixel at the current note to pink. I play a tone at whatever this pitches string has in the place of the current note. So initially that's 0. When we are done playing it, we then increment that variable note by 1. So it essentially means we're moving to the next string for the next time we use this. And then we're also using this modulo remainder of note divided by 4 to loop through 1, 2, 3, or 0, 1, 2, 3, 0, 1, 2, 3, 0, 1, 2, 3. The individual touchpads are done using this input touch A4, A5, A6, and A7, and they do the same thing, but it's a little simpler because they just explicitly say play pitch 0, 1, 2, or 3. And you can do it inside of the simulator here, and you can even test out those touchpads. You won't hear that right now. But if I use my real Circuit Playground Express down here, you can use those to tune up your uke. And that is your Makecode Minute.
Okay, and we have some Python on hardware news. First up, we have 8,000 subscribers on the Python on hardware newsletter. I think this is.
we hit 2,500.
This is, I think, the most popular Python on hardware newsletter.
It's the only Python on hardware newsletter.
But it just goes to show, like 8,000. That's a lot of subscribers.
It is a lot. It's a lot.
It's our fastest growing newsletter. So if you were wondering what's all the hubbub about Python on hardware, can you hand me that mic over there?
I would love to hand you that.
Yeah. So I'm going to be talking about this later, but also on the cover of the latest Make magazine, The Rise of Python, and it's all about Python on hardware. So good timing. There's enough out there that people are doing with hardware. You can see there's a lot of stuff going on.
Chinese guy.
Yeah. So
Okay, cool.
Big news. Leave that there.
Oh, sorry.
And we also have Circuit Python Day coming up 9/9.
Snaky.
Yeah, it'll be in a few weeks. So we'll probably have shows and more. International celebration of Python on hardware. Hope to see you there. Stay tuned to the blog. We'll have shows. It happens to be a Wednesday, so unless something bonkers happens, we'll be doing a celebration, probably with the CircuitPython team throughout the day and/or evening show. Stay tuned. All right, time travel. Let's look around the world of makers, hackers, artists, engineers, stuff that's going on, and more. This week, a little bit of a reminder. So we've been doing this for a while. We did paid day off for voting, and just voting and voting, everything.
Everyone's just done by voting.
Like right now is the DNC.
Yeah.
Everybody's doing virtual stuff.
Yeah.
There's also mail-in ballot stuff, mail-in ballot drama. But here's the thing that you can do if you're a company or if you work at a company, may as well, since it's in the news, say, hey, like, what would it take to get the day off to go vote? Because this might be an all-day.
And it might take a long time to vote this year.
Yeah. So a few years ago when we did this, definitely one of the only companies. I emailed other companies. Some of the leaders of other companies scolded me. How dare I email them and suggest their teams get day off? Whatever. So one of the things that I think is going to be clear is it's going to take a little bit longer to vote this year.
Yeah, probably.
So if you need any help, if you work at a company, email me pt@adafruit.com. I can tell your HR person or maybe a manager, hey, this really worked out well for us and increased productivity, increased morale. We've been doing this long before this election, and it just helps, I think, demonstrate, especially in the U.S. because we don't have it as a national holiday.
And it's on Tuesday. It's a work day.
Yeah, and there's enough anxiety people are going to have. It's a thing you can do.
Also, they need more poll workers. A lot of poll workers are older Americans, It's just true. And a lot of those older people should be staying home and staying safe. So more poll workers are needed. So not only do we need more people to vote, we need more people
Yeah.
to watch people vote.
So there's going to be a bunch of stuff going on, and this is just something a business can do.
It's easy.
And so this is the portion where we're like, hey, this worked out. And if we can do it, a woman-owned manufacturing company in New York City, if we can manage to still stay in business by giving the day off to go vote, then you can too. And so
And here's a hint. People aren't going to do that much work on a voting day anyways. They're all going to be like looking at results and like
Yeah.
talking and
but this is, I think Coca-Cola just announced they're going
oh
to
great.
they're going to
Yeah.
do a paid day off. Like the other thing that there's no way to stop this, so I'm just going to talk about it.
Okay.
Because I think you have to like say these things. There's a tendency for people to when there's progress that happens, they tear it down. So I saw that Coca-Cola is going to do the paid day off,
Yeah.
and right away, people started saying, "Well, but if you're this type of, but what about this? What about that?" And they can't acknowledge that this is just a step in the right direction for Coca-Cola,
Yeah.
because Coca-Cola is such a giant company.
They're the most
They're-
multinational company in the
They're-
world.
Yeah, so like
It doesn't get more multinational.
so they agreed that they're going to do a paid day off. So just celebrate that just for a minute, and then hey, there's independent bottlers, so they can decide how they're going to do that. And once it comes from corporate, though, that's the first good step. This is a big company like Coca-Cola saying we're giving our employees a paid day off.
Yeah.
It's a good first thing. So, always hold people accountable and criticize, but at least take 1 second to say, hey, good work.
Job. Yeah.
Good work, because I think one of the things that happens now is when good things happen, people get caught up and they divide themselves into camps too early. At least agree that something is kind of good direction. Hate each other later,
Yeah.
but
Plenty of time to hate
Yeah.
after the election.
So anyways, just check it out. Coca-Cola announced it. It's a big deal. Big deal. Except David Sandies was on the show and tell, and normally Kevin is. And Kevin is from DigiKey. David's from DigiKey. And Kevin posted this video up on his Twitter. And this is from the Make board guide. Can you hand me the board guide over there? So this is the insert that comes with the latest Make. And we like this Make, and we're stocking in the store now because it's all about Python and hardware. But that's what your phone will do when you shine it on a page in the board guide.
Android or iPhone.
Yeah.
Both.
And it'll pop out the boards. And this year there's a bunch of Adafruit boards. Thank you, Mick. And there's also a Lady Ada that talks
AR.
about some of the boards.
If you put your phone
So-
in it, I will appear.
This is a really neat futuristic way, and you can go to digikey.com/boards, and you can download the PDF. You don't even need to get the magazine, but the app is free, and you can spin
Hi
around all these
everybody,
different
it's
boards.
me,
So
Lady
that's a
Ada,
view
here
of what it
to
looks
tell
like.
you about the trends that
Alright,
I've
phone
seen
number.
this year with
So
development
that
board
was cool.
for DigiKey's board guide.
I used to work
so let's
at
jump right
Make.
in.
And I also do a bunch of stuff in publishing. I will say this is probably one of the best makes that have come out, and I can say that without, of course it has Adafruit stuff, but I would say that regardless.
Yeah, it was actually good. It was a good issue.
Yeah.
It's good to see they're still around.
Yeah, and I think because we've been doing this for so long, and I was a part of Make, and we used stuff at Hackspace, and I started Hackaday, it's high praise. So if you're gonna subscribe, or you're gonna do something we don't get any money when you subscribe to Make, but this is this to me is what Make is all about. It's this is
Making stuff.
scripting languages on hardware. Here's all the latest boards. Good work, Make, and good work, DigiKey, on putting everything together for the board guide. Okay, we are an open source hardware company.
It's true.
We have 2,267 guides. Lady Ada, what's on the big board this week?
I'm glad you asked. Starting from the top left, we have JP's network connected RGB matrix clock. It's a gigantic customizable clock. Pick your font, pick your colors, pick whatever. And because it uses the internet at the time, it always adjusts automatically to daylight savings time. It's always atomic level correctness because it's NTP synced. It's a fun little project you can build for a clock. He needed a big clock in his workshop. We also have a guide, thanks to Kattni and Melissa for writing up a guide on the new 2.13-inch monochrome e-ink bonnet for Raspberry Pi. This product was very, very old, but I finally finished it thanks to lockdowns. I had nothing else to do. And it's in the shop now, so you can add a monochrome e-ink bonnet, and we have Python code for you to display images, and Melissa even has some tips and tricks on dithering images to appear nicely on a monochrome display. The Ruiz brothers made a cool desk toy using an 8x8 NeoPixel matrix, a 3D printed like grid box, and some LED acrylic. We'll show a video about that shortly. Brian wrote up a guide for the new MS8607 PHT sensor. I like the sensor because now there's a competition for Bosch. TE now has a sensor that has pressure, humidity, and temperature all in one sensing at a good price. And we have a guide with Arduino and Python and CircuitPython code. Phil B wrote a guide called Ice Shootout. Sounds like something you shouldn't do, but it's actually a teardown of Halloween electronics that have started to appear in Lowe's and Home Depot that have eyes in them. And he was like, hey, that's like really close to the code I wrote, and how did they do that? And so he does a really good teardown and analysis of exactly how these TFT eyes, low-cost TFT eyes are working. And it's not what you expect. Or maybe it is. Carter wrote a guide on making a Pi Portal hurricane tracker. Very handy because it's starting to become hurricane season. When you put it on your desk, you tell it your basic location, and it'll show hurricanes as they approach as a little red hurricane symbol. So it's kind of cool. It gets data from NOAA, I think. Brian also wrote another guide for the AS7341. It's a new 10-channel light and color sensor. It's new in the shop this week, so check it out and you can read the guide. Again, we've got code in Arduino and Python, CircuitPython. I think this was from last week, but why not? Dylan wrote a really great guide about the Pi HQ camera, the high quality camera, and all the different lenses you can use, the effects that the lenses have, and how you can connect your own favorite lenses. And that's the guides.
Okay, yeah, we'll be showing this off shortly and more. Okay, we'll have more guides next week.
As every week.
New York City factory footage this week. You know, we take photos around New York City when the pandemic was peaking in March and April. I was documenting it each night, but now there's other stuff going on. You know, businesses returned, and there's outdoor dining, but this is outside our post office right near us. Same as the post office. So, you know, New York has a variety of sidewalk art and paste ups and more. Right now, a lot of folks are worried and concerned about the post service, so you'll start to see that around. Some old photos.
Yeah, it's all pick and place.
This is a pick and place from back in our apartment days, and
I tweeted a lot with
10
this.
years ago, yeah.
Yeah, it started the business. I mean, like it was a pick and place that ran on 120 power and could fit through a door in an apartment, and that's why we had it. Just filling up trays. Sometimes parts get loose; they come out of trays, and we have a custom tray that we can put in the pick and place. This is, I think, adding some paste to the stenciler. We gotta do that every once in a while. Keep it full up. We got a new pump for the selective solder machine. You can see the new one on the right and the old one on the left. So you can see how beautiful and shiny the new pump is. So that's cleaning off components for the selective solder. You can see it's quite an adventure. But now it's nice and shiny. You can tin it. Nice.
And it wouldn't be Made in New York City factory footage without a time lapse of all the construction going outside
Never
across the
stops.
street from Adafruit. So this is Disney, one of Disney like headquarter buildings that they're building right across the street from us, and they just keep going. That's the only thing that didn't pause in
Yeah.
New York.
Not at
Okay,
all.
3D printing every single week. Noah and Pedro are printing up Storm. This week we have 2 videos back to back. It's the little display, and then we're going to do a speed up. We'll see you on the other side.
Hey, what's up folks? In this project, we're making a square LED display with NeoPixels in CircuitPython. This project uses the 8x8 Neo Matrix in a 3D printed grid with a piece of acrylic to create a square pixel display. We designed a 3D printed case and fitted the Feather M4 Express on the back. The effect is created by blocking out each pixel and diffusing the LEDs with a special piece of acrylic. The Proto Feather Wing makes it so you can easily swap out the board, which is nice if you want to upgrade to something with Bluetooth or Wi-Fi. The Feather Wing allows for that extra bit of modularity, so you can upgrade this with any number of feathers. This special material goes by black LED acrylic and has some interesting optics. The further the material gets from a light source, the softer the diffusion. Typical acrylic like this tinted gray is really opaque and it doesn't offer any diffusion. The black LED acrylic is essentially designed for LEDs, so it's much better in comparison. This example code is part of the LED animation library for CircuitPython. It shows how to use the Pixel Map helper to easily create horizontal and vertical grids. The Learn Guide covers best use cases and features demo code that you can quickly put together. We think it's a great way to get started with NeoPixels, and CircuitPython makes it easy to get up and running. The CAD assembly snap fits together and features built-in standoffs for securing the Neo Matrix. 3D models of the PCB and components were used to create parts with precise fittings. You can get the parts to build this project, links are in the description. The enclosure parts can be 3D printed without any support material using PLA filament. The Neo Matrix and Proto Feather Wing are connected with a JST cable for a plug-and-play assembly. Be sure to check out the Learn Guide for a full step-by-step tutorial. The 3D printed grid features cutouts for fitting over the caps on board the Neo Matrix. This allows the grid to be pressed up against the surface and prevents any of the light from leaking. The piece of acrylic fits inside the cover and rests over the lip so it doesn't fall out. The cover fits over the grid and snap fits over the edges of the PCB mount. Definitely check out the 8x8 Neo Matrix from Adafruit. It's a nice board with lots of pixels and mounting holes, so you can make some cool projects with it. I hope you try out CircuitPython in your next project, and don't forget to make a great day.
And don't forget, every single Wednesday, the longest running 3D printed show, 3D Hangouts. with
Learn
Pedro.
everything.
Yeah. Okay, let's go on to
Okay.
DigiKey and Adafruit bring you This week's Ion NPI is from Allegro. Lady Ada, what is this week's new product introduction?
Okay, that's just cool. I like it when there's new companies. I don't think we've done the Allegro chip yet, but I like Allegro, an American company, I think, and they've got a cool logo. Their old logo I thought was also really cool, but this one, I like the die chipped and they got the rainbow thing still going on. That's cool. So Allegro is known for doing magnetic sensors, and they also have some motor controllers and stuff. They do robotics and current sensing. They're very specialized, and they haven't been purchased by Maxim, I think. So this is a great time to take a look at their new sensor, the ACS 37002. So I'm just going to call it the ACS 37 because it's a long number. And this is a new generation of isolated current sensor. This is current sensors actually taking good advice from the medical community and staying isolated from others, like their circuits. This is an isolated current sensor. So how do we normally measure current? Well, this is like an old project I did. And a common way to measure current is you have a very small resistor, and it's either on the low side, it's between the device you're measuring the load of or the draw of, and ground. And then you have an op amp, you see here in the center an op amp, and it has like a high gain, maybe like 100 or 1,000. And then after you amplify that, you measure the voltage, and then you kind of divide by the gain, and it tells you, and the resistor, and it tells you the current. Okay, well, you can also, do high side. Low side is kind of annoying because your ground kind of ends up, you have two grounds. You have the real ground and then the fake ground. So there's also high side sensing, and it's kind of like this, but the other way. The resistor is on the top of the power supply. But this also has some issues. One, voltage that you're measuring on the power might be much higher than the voltage of your op amp or your circuit. Like you might be measuring a 12-volt battery or a solar panel, but your circuit is running at 3 or 5 volts. So you can get a custom chip, and some of these have, they do the gain, and they can have high voltages, and so you can do higher low side sensing. But either way, your measuring circuit is referenced against what you're measuring the load of. It's part of the same circuit. The ground is the ground on both sides, whether it's high or low side sensing. And there are a lot of situations where you want total isolation. You don't want any connection at all between what you're measuring and the measurement circuit. This could be because you have high voltages, you have AC, you have, you want to reduce noise that may couple across the two circuits. A lot of reasons why you want to have isolated current measurement. So this series of sensors from Allegro, what they use is, instead of having a resistor where the current goes across the resistor and you measure the voltage differential, it actually measures the magnetic field generated from current passing through a conductor. Now you may remember this from your E&M class. As current passes through, right-hand rule, you have a magnetic field that is generated. And in this case, you just see here a Hall effect sensor demonstrating that it can measure the output. And with careful calibration, you can take that magnetic flux and back correlate it to how much current. You have to do a lot of calibration. You have to make sure that your Hall effect sensor is the same every time and that the resistor is very precise. But it is possible to get very good quality current sensing. So you may be familiar with an earlier Allegro chip, the ACS 712. This was a very popular chip. This could measure under 50 amps. It had about 4% error. It had high bandwidth. And it basically, you'd have, on one side, you can see the thick traces are the two traces that are in line with your circuit. Now, it does have to be in series with the circuit, but you can see it's on one half of the chip, and it can be high side, low side, middle. It can be anywhere you want, because again, it's completely isolated electrically. And the output is a voltage, and the voltage is either 0 is the middle and it goes above and below, or it's ratiometric, or it could be from 0 to above if it's only positive voltages. Either way, this is the old generation. And so if you're familiar with that chip, this is the next generation. This is a really cool image. You can see here, there's the Hall effect sensor in the center, and you see how there's like 4 pins for each connection, so you have like a lot of current pass through. And there's basically a resistance. It's very low. I think it's like 0.4 milliohms. So it shouldn't affect your current draw or your voltage across the chip as much. And then there's an electrical isolation using a plastic layer between the Hall effect sensor and the magnetic plate. The plate that it's measuring the electrical current coming through. What's nice about the chip is it's a much higher quality chip than the ACS712. The inline resistor is much lower. I actually wrote that down, so hold on. So one thing is you can measure much higher currents, so it can go up to 66 amps, which is kind of nice. The resistor is much lower. I think it's about 1/2. The linearity is a lot better. It's about twice as good. There's a lot of things that are improved with the circuit. So this is the next generation. So if you've been looking at the ACS712, I recommend looking at this chip as an upgrade. Another nice thing is there's a gain selection. So there's all these extra pins, so they added gain selection. So there's, you can see here on the top right, you can set the gain there's 2 pins, and from 00 to 11. You can have different gains from 30 millivolts per amp up to 60 millivolts per amp. So you can tune it to get the best performance, because you want to have your current range be very close to, but slightly larger than what you're actually expecting to measure. There's also interrupt pins and some other good stuff. This chip does come in a wide variety. One thing I noticed is that there's kind of like there's like a low noise version, and then there's also like a high range version. So you want to take a look. It's like if you want different ranges and different sensitivities. Nothing unlike the ACS712, this comes in a nominal 3.3 volt voltage for analog to digital converters, which is really nice because most chips these days are 3.3 volt. If you do, though, you have to pick the 3.3 volt version. So there's like a 5 volt and a 3 volt. Just make sure you pick the right one. You can look at the selection guide here shown from the data sheet. Basically decide, is it going to be, bidirectional current? Great. There's a couple that do bidirectional. What is your logic level voltage? And then do you want higher precision, lower noise? And then you can kind of pare down to figure out the exact model you want to get. But you can pick these up at DigiKey. They're in stock now, and I even picked up some myself. So I thought I'd show on the overhead, and then we could watch a video that's, again, it's for the older ACS712, but the same kind of concept. And it's a nice video from Allegro.
I normally read the product ID number, but this one's super long, but it's digikey.com/short/ZRB8P4, but you can also just search for it. And let's check it out on the overhead, and then we'll play, we have a little video from them.
Yes, so let me lock on. Okay, so this is how the chip comes. So it comes in a kind of a standard wide SOIC, and it's of course going to be hard to peel it off. So this is the chip, and then 1/2, I think it's on this side. 4 pins are the one side of your connector. 4 pins are the other side of it. I know it's so small.
There you go. That's cool.
Yeah, one on the, I think that's on the right side. Oh. And then, four lower pins connect to one end, 4 other pins go to the other end, so that's in series. And then you've got power ground, 2 gain selects for the interrupt output. It's just too close. Let's see the number there. It's kind of nice. So it's nice and big and easy to use. You can even prototype with it. And very high current range. And again, you can use it. I think the isolation is like 4.8 kilovolts or something. And it's great for AC or DC. I want to mention that. It can do up to 400 hertz AC, which is one of the things that like a current transformer won't do as nicely for you. So I think solar panels use high voltage and high frequency AC. It's one of the purposes of this is to help measure solar panel output. So.
All right, and let's listen from the source. Got a little bit of video.
Current flows in and out of the package. It travels in the package through a 3/4 loop inside the package and then back out again. This current flow generates a magnetic field around the loop that is proportional to the magnitude of the current flowing in the conductor. The resistance of these Allegro sensor ICs is only about 1 milliohm, and therefore the power loss is extremely low, making them highly efficient in sensing currents as high as 50 amps continuous current. An Allegro Hall effect sensor IC is integrated into the package, and it senses the magnetic field generated by the current flowing in the conductor. The Hall transducer converts the magnetic field into a voltage. Flip chip technology allows the Hall transducer to be placed over the portion of the loop where the magnetic field is strongest. The flip chip technology also allows for the connection of the signal leads of the IC to the package leads on the other side of the package. This also provides the high isolation of these surface mount current sensor IC packages. While the Hall sensor IC is in close proximity to the current loop, there is an insulating layer of plastic between the two, as can be seen in this cross section. This insulating layer provides high voltage isolation and allows Allegro current sensor ICs to be used in AC line-tied applications.
And once again, don't forget, you can get that on digikey.com, and that is
On MPI.
Okay, a
All right.
great chip.
And speaking of new products, it is now time, Lady Ada.
That's right. New.
All right. Don't forget, we are shipping safe. We are shipping smart. We are shipping from New York City. The best comeback story during this time that I know of. So let's see what we're making this week.
We got a
Headed
lot
for
of
it.
stuff. Okay, so you got 2 SPI FRAM breakouts. These are pretty neat. Actually, someone emailed us and said, hey, check it out. There's new FRAM chips available from Fujitsu that are like really big. And I'm like, you're right, they're really big. We've had SPI and I2C FRAM, but they were like 32 kilobytes or something, which is okay, but we really wanted more. So we now have SPI FRAM with a logic level shifter, because these are 3-volt only devices, in both 2 megabit and 4 megabit, which is
Want me to show the
actually
other one?
kind of, yeah,
the
they
other
look kind of the same. The 2 megabit is just a smaller chip,
Oh.
but they both fit on the same breakout. It's logic level shifted, and there's a regulator, so you can use it with 5 volts
Oops.
or
We can get this one.
3 volt logic and
What's the
power.
difference between the two?
One's chunky. See, this one's
One's
chunky, 4
chunkier.
megabit.
Yeah.
Svelte, 2
Okay.
megabit. So why are these great? Well, FRAM allows you to store data in a non-volatile sense, which you write a byte, you've written a byte. They don't have wear leveling issues like SPI flash, so you can write each byte, I think, like 100 billion times or something like 10 to the 12. It's a huge number. You can write instantly, so it's much, much faster. You don't have to erase a page and then write a page. You can write each byte and you can write it instantly. So if you're doing data logging and you don't have like megabytes to data log, but you want to make sure that your data log is written instantly, it doesn't have to flush, and you can stream data to it much, much faster, again, than SPI flash, because you don't have to erase any pages. You just write to the data as is, and we've got both Arduino and Python code to interact with these chips.
Okay, next up, this one tried to sneak in.
That's right, sneaky. This is a new little buck converter. You'll notice I have a couple buck converters. I'm designing some boards that have bucks in them, and so it's like, well, you know, I've got these chips here and I've kind of designed it. Might as well make a breakout. So this is a very low cost buck converter. It doesn't have the high range that the NPM 3610 has. We put those in the store a couple weeks ago. Those can do 20 volts. This can only do like 5 volts, maybe 6 volts in, 3.3 volts out. Can do about 1.2 amps, which is really nice. It's very small, it's inexpensive. I think this is still pretty handy. You know, if you have a small circuit that was running on 3.3 volts, you need about an amp, and you've got, you know, maybe a LiPo, or you got a couple AAA or AA batteries, or you've got 5-volt USB. This will be a great little addition to your circuit, and you know, you'll be able to get much more current than a linear regulator for the size, and without the heat issues that you have with linear regulators.
All right, next up.
Next up, we have a new version of our RGB matrix feather wing, which people love. We had the M0 and M4 version, which was used for, as you may guess, our feather M0s and M4s. But when we came out with the NRF 52840, we were, you know, part of the deal is that you have to pick very special pins, and those pins were not the same on the NRF. So I kind of respun this board around a little bit to make it Feather NRF52840 compatible. So it works with both the Feather Express NRF52840 and the Feather Sense. You can assemble it in two ways. One way is you have like the socket on the top, so you can have the boards side by side and the RGB matrix plugs into the top. The other way to do it is where you solder it onto the bottom. There's a socket connector you put on the bottom, and then when you want, you can plug it into a board. So for example, let me just show this off. This is a Feather Sense here, so it's got all these sensors built in, and I've soldered up the wing so that it has these sockets on the bottom. So you see the feathers on top, which is nice. You can see all the sensors and the light sensors and the switches and the LEDs are available. And then this plugs into the matrix. And then I've got this demo. So let me see if I can reset it. So this is my, bring it out a little bit. This is a very big matrix. So I've got this LED sand demo from the Feather Sense, which has an accelerometer in it. It can measure tilt, and so it knows when I'm moving it, and the LEDs move with it, kind of in a cool, fun way. So again,
That's
LEDs, and then LED sand. So just ported this demo over, and what's nice is how clean the wiring is. Again, no jumpers, no breadboard. You plug it right in, and then you just have the power connect through, and then you can power it from a DC jack very easily. So it's a great addition, and you still have all the sensors here. You have the Bluetooth, and we've got Arduino and CircuitPython code for driving these matrices now. So very easy way to make a glowy project.
All right, next up, let's go to...
Ooh, this is a cool sensor. So this is a new sensor that Brian Sedacious put together, and it took a couple weeks, but it was worth it. So this sensor is a multispectral sensor. It has 10 color sensors inside of it, like different wavelengths. You can see the wavelengths in the back: 415, 445, 480, 515, 555, 590, 630, 680, clear and near IR. So you've got 8 visible colors, 1 clear, which is kind of like general white, overall lux, and then near IR. And it can measure these separately as individual bins, and that's kind of neat because you can do, it's like a very small, very basic spectrometer that works over I²C. It's very inexpensive considering what you're getting with it, and I think it can be really useful for science projects, or it's used for detecting the true color of lights or monitors to calibrate them. But I think it could be really cool for like some science or sensor projects. It's a very interesting new sensor.
All right, next up.
Okay, we finally got this in the store. We have the Sharp Memory Display, 2.7-inch Sharp Memory Display is finally in stock. We've carried the smaller version of this display, like 1.3-inch or 1.5-inch, but we saw the 2.7 inches had come down in cost somewhat to the point where it was like, oh, we can make a breakout. So this is a very high resolution screen. It's 400 by 240 pixels. So you can see here the individual pixels. All the other demos had to use kind of chunky, larger graphics because it was hard to see it because it's such like a fine pitch display. It runs off of both 3 and 5 volts. You actually need both voltages, I found out. So we put both a boost converter, a little switch cap converter, and a linear regulator. So you can use it with 3 volt or 5 volt logic. And then I ported Bad Apple to it, so I could show that.
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay, 1 second. I got to get my demo. That's going to be overhead. And show this off. So the only thing is the Bad Apple demo I took was 128 by... Oh no, my demo didn't work.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. Oh wait, there you go. Ground wire got disconnected. The only thing about this is I had to use a binary file that's 128 by 64. So everything looks really chunky because I scaled it up by 4 times. But what's really nice about this demo is it shows you both the refresh and the contrast and how it looks in real life with this silvery background and these black pixels. It's a very unique display. extremely daylight readable. You do need to have light shining on it though. It doesn't have a backlight.
Yeah.
You can do that, and you can see it's actually a little shiny.
Yeah, look how sharp it is.
It's very
literally
sharp.
a sharp display.
It's called a sharp display, and it is a sharp display, even though it's the company. It's called
Yeah.
sharp. So, very high resolution display. One thing to watch out for. You really want to have a hardware SPI port to control it because there's a lot of pixels, and you need a chip with a lot of RAM because you have to buffer the whole display. So this is not going to run on an Uno or a Leonardo. You'll need at least like a Mega or like a Raspberry Pi or an M4 and M0 board in order to drive these beautiful displays. So very nice, also very thin.
Okay. Moving right along. Next up.
Okay, next up, we've got some NeoPixel neon strip. I don't know, I kind of like these neon strips. I know we have a lot of them, but this one is RGBW, so it's a NeoPixel strip of encased silicone, so it's like flexible and very beautifully diffused. And one of the, and each LED inside not only has red, green, but also has white. So you can see this cool white color, as well as the the normal red, green, blue. So this is runs off of 5 volts, which is really nice. This is looks like a normal RGBW NeoPixel. It's too washed out.
Yeah,
The LED
that's a cool. This is the plastic that we use
Yeah.
to better show.
It shows LEDs. I've solved the problem of how to use to show.
It's a nice
LEDs.
diffused rainbow.
Yeah, those
Looks
are nice.
cool.
This is and this is just showing it's pure white, and then it goes back to the rainbow swirl. And what's nice about this is it's very flexible. You can twist and bend it. We see this a lot making cove lighting or like fake neon signs. So what I like about this is we had a couple versions that were like 12 volts, or they weren't RGBW. So we finally have one that's RGBW. I think this could be great for some kind of nifty art installations or lighting installations.
All right,
Okay,
moving right along.
moving right along. You got a lot to get through.
Yeah, there's this
Okay, so we got this magnetic strip.
magnetic strip.
This is such a weird thing. I don't know if anyone's going to want it, but I thought it was interesting. So what it is, it's a multi-pole magnetic strip, and this is used by CNC builders. And a lot like that current sensor I was talking about, what you do is you have a Hall effect sensor or a magnetometer, and you measure along the strip, and by measuring how the poles flip back and forth on the strip, you can determine what your position is and your speed and your direction. So it looks just like normal, like low-cost magnetic material. It's got that like kind of a dark gray look. This is a magnet viewing film, so this lets you kind of see. It doesn't tell you the polarity, but it tells you where there's a magnetic field. So they put it over, you can see that there's alternating poles. So it goes north, south, et cetera, every 5 millimeters, and it's very precise. And so if you have a magnet, a Hall effect sensor that can detect north or south polarity, as it moves, even though these are 5 millimeter apart, it can measure the change in strength, which will be a sine wave, right? It won't be a perfect square wave, it'll be a sine wave. It can measure the speed and location along the strip. And this is much more flexible than an optical strip, and you don't have to have the delicate optical strip. This will of course survive much harsher environments because the magnetic sensor doesn't have to be physically touching or surrounding the strip. It's kind of interesting material. So we give it to you in a meter long strip cut off for you. You can cut it with a powerful shear. It's got a 3M adhesive on the back. I'm not going to peel it off because
Yeah.
it's extremely sticky, as I found out.
And you can splice it to the size you want.
You just cut it. Yeah, you just cut it into the size you want. You're not going to be like, this is a meter long. You're not going to be making a CNC that's a meter long, probably. But I remember like when I was in school, there's always this problem of like, you wanted to measure motion across a line, but you didn't want to get like a whole custom optical sensor. So I think even though this is not inexpensive, it is a really easy to use solution, right? You can use the same code that people have for everyday magnetic encoders, and you just use it on a linear strip rather than like a rotating sensor. So multi-pole magnetic strips. Somebody emailed us and said, you should carry this. And I was like, well, that's kind of cool. And now we're carrying it.
All right. Next up.
Okay, now we've got a family of motors. So these are the first N20 motors that we're stocking. We wanted to hit it off with a bang. So these are, like we mentioned, encoder-enabled N20s. So they're the N20 size, which is kind of a standard size DC geared motor, and they've got a D shaft on the end. But what's really cool is it's not just a motor, it has an encoder built in, a magnetic encoder that has both direct, it has 2 outputs, and so you can tell both direction and speed. And these are really great little encoders. I've got a demo, you can show a little video. And we've got multiple gears. So I think we've got 1 to 50, 1 to 100, 1 to 150, and 1 to 300. So I kind of tried to pick, a range that people could use for their projects. And I'll plug this in. They have the same current. So all of them are, this way. All of them are 6 volt nominal, but you can drive them at 4.5 or 5 volts. I'm doing here 5 volts off of USB. And they all draw about 100 milliamps while rated, like running normally, and 200 milliamps while stalled. So not the most powerful motors, but I think it's a good trade-off of speed and size and cost. On the back, there's this little magnetic wheel. It has, I think, 14 poles, 7 pairs, and then you can power the motor with 2 wires through like any brushed DC motor driver, and then there's another 2 pins, 2 wires, one for power and ground for the logic levels. So it can be 3 or 5 volt logic, and then 2 more outputs that you can connect to, say, the interrupts of your microcontroller. And that's how this Featherwing setup is measuring the speed, RPM, and the direction. So you can see it knows it's going forward or backward. And then, there's a lot of robotics, especially as you start to try to drive straight and you realize that your motors aren't perfectly equivalent. Having an encoder lets you make sure that all the motors are matched up. You can also tell when you're stalling. You can tell which direction you're going. You can correct if somebody bumps into your robot or something. So I thought this was kind of nice because it's like an all-in-one motor solution. You don't need to use the encoder, but I think if you're paying for these, you should definitely hook up the encoder, at least one of them to tell the speed, 2 of them to tell the direction.
All right.
All right, so
Next up.
N20 motors. Oh, and we have wheels for those as well, if you need wheels. Magnetic feet. Okay, so these are just like these magnetic feet. These come with RGB matrices, but our latest vendor of LED matrices, even though they've let us really reduce the cost of our LED matrices, would not include the magnetic feet, which I was actually okay with. So now I sell them separately, a couple bucks. And if you want to mount your LED matrix on your fridge, for example, or on your multi-pole magnetic strip, pick these up. You get 4. You screw them onto the back. They got magnets.
Yeah. Okay. We now have the standalone AdaBox, the
That's
latest
right.
one. Get a clue.
Get a clue and all the clue accessories.
Yeah.
You get a pump and tubing and batteries and battery holder. You get a bonsai buckaroo. You get a glove, and you even get a KN95 mask. So you can build a ton of projects. What's interesting is usually we have more stuff in the box, but because the clue is so integrated, it has 10 different sensors built into it. We have a lot of clue projects, and it's on the cover of Make, so that you know that you can be inspired with Arduino or CircuitPython to get a clue and investigate the world around you.
Yeah. And the star of the show tonight, besides you, Lady Ada, and our community and our team and Adafruit, is
The MS8607 from TE. They make great sensors. This is a PHT sensor, also known as a pressure, humidity, and temperature sensor. Runs over I2C, so we put some STEMMA QT connectors on it. We're getting very close to 50 STEMMA QT sensors and boards, which is very exciting. Brian did the code for this one. You can program it in Arduino or CircuitPython or Python, so it works on a Raspberry Pi, an Arduino, a Clue if you want to add another sensor. And what's nice is that this is, previously there was only the Bosch sensors that had these integrated pressure and humidity sensing elements, and now we have a new contender, which I always like. I like to see more options. So here I've got a quick demo. I just have it plugged into a feather. So pressure, it's got the pressure, about 1,000 hectopascals. Humidity, it's kind of humid in here, 65%. Temperature, a nice 27 degrees. If I breathe on it, I can make the humidity go up. Temperature goes up a little bit. And if I put my hand over the sensor, I can make the pressure go up a little bit. So these can be used as altimeters. It's actually a little bit more precise than the digits I'm showing. There's more digits I didn't print out because it wouldn't fit on the screen. We can use it as an altimeter. You can use it as weather sensing. You can use it for any kind of environmental or plant monitoring. So a lot of options. I like pressure, humidity, and temperature. It gives you a really good sense of what's going on in the enclosure or the greenhouse or your factory, or what the weather's going to be like. So combine all together, it's a nice environmental sensor from TE.
All right. And that is the product.
New. Whew, that's a lot of news.
There was a lot this week.
There was a lot.
All right, so
We didn't get to all of them.
We're going to do questions, and then we're going to play the Python on Hardware newsletter video edition as the end of the show.
That's
So
right.
once we play that, that's the end of the show.
Yeah.
So let's get to some questions first.
Okay.
We're going to answer those. We do the questions over on Discord, adafruit.it/Discord. Go over there. That's the best place to ask the questions. Join all 24,000 of us over there. And I will recap one of the questions.
Okay.
So one person said, what's the link for the standalone AdaBox? George is going to post it up in the Discord
Thank you,
right
George.
now.
It's part 4491.
Yeah. Someone had asked, can you splice the magnetic strip? We already we said.
If you cut it, it's hard to fit it exactly. It's not going to be aligned perfectly. Although you could use that magnetic view film to try to get it. I'd really just cut it to the length you need.
Okay. The other question, and I had answered it in the chat, was someone said, do we have any start to finish, like manufacturing, designing PCB, all the way to shipping a product? We did.
Boy, I do.
They even said for like something like the Circuit Playground. And if someone's
Very
interested in all the things that go into a design like the Circuit Playground, you can Google for Maker to Market, DigiKey Adafruit, or you can go to our site and search on our little search box from the blog. You can search for it on YouTube. It was a really popular series we did that goes from designing something, marketing, finding the parts for it, manufacturing it, shipping it, you name it.
Design decisions.
Yeah, it's there.
Research.
So check
market
that out.
research, everything.
So, question for the show. Adafruit I/O, the while or if I/O status connected design time can be called more than just in the setup part of the Arduino code. Looking to call it fairly frequently and integrate it with a phone SMS alert to check fails so I know the Wi-Fi is down before even testing one to make sure it wouldn't cause problems with the server or anything else.
No, you can
Yeah,
you
it should
can
be
do it
fine.
as pretty much as often as you want. You can ping the server. You can also check your Wi-Fi status from your whatever Wi-Fi connection in CircuitPython. You can just if you're using an Airlift, for example, and you can ask for the status. It can tell you if it's still connected to the access point.
Okay, I'm building a non-invasive glucometer. I need to measure very low current through the skin. I'll need an amp, but I'm not sure which one to use. Hoping there's one in the storage dismiss, if it matters, starting with Feather M4 Express and an Airlift for data communications.
I think for something like that, what you actually want to do is check out, an app note from Analog Devices or TI, and they'll actually give you a suggestion because you'll want an instrumentation op amp, which we don't stock. And you might want one that has very particular uses. So you might want to Google for, example circuit or app note, glucometer or whatever, and then check out those app notes and see what they suggest because they'll tell you what the specifications you need for that application.
Okay, have you seen any slung of USPS packages? Yeah. So we did see letters that we have pretty frequent either bills coming in or checks coming in or other types of mail, and then we have things that have tracking numbers, and then we have packages that are going outbound, and we have packages that are going inbound, and it looks like things that were going through middle of the country just took a little bit longer, and also depending where they came from in New York, and I think that goes with some of the reports about like some sorting areas, things were just taking longer.
Yeah.
And then so some of it's anecdotally, I had things that would take 3 days at the most, go to 5 days, 6 days, 7 days, re-delivery attempts.
Yeah.
Where they say it's out for delivery, but then it goes back.
Yeah.
We've kept track of this over the last decade, and for outbound packages leaving New York going somewhere, that's been okay. So for us, getting postal packages to people has been fine.
Yeah.
But it just seems like the general mail slowed down briefly, and it could be volume after July. It could be more people were doing more stuff in the mail. It could be some of the things that we've seen on the
more
news.
people are mail ordering stuff. They're not going to stores.
Yeah. So what we don't have is the definitive data set. Like I'm going to keep doing the sample travel times on packages, but our outbound stuff seems to be okay, and it's mostly afraid for just packages. But some of the things that just regular, hey, this seems different. It seemed like letters, and it seems like where they were coming from.
Yeah.
And that was just because we have a general idea how long things take. Like we're a company that receives and ships things.
Yeah.
So.
Okay.
I have a Huzzah 32, and it's too far away from my router connected Wi-Fi. What should I do?
Get a bigger antenna for your router. Oh no, not what you can do on the Huzzah side.
Okay. Question: what kind of sensor can I utilize to detect the presence of a small animal or children in an automotive interior?
A PIR sensor might do the job. Yeah, I think a PIR sensor is gonna work out really well. I mean, you can use a camera, but that gets a lot more expensive and complicated because you have to do OpenCV or something to recognize shapes. Although that would definitely work very well as well. Is actually having something with a camera, like a Raspberry Pi. It would actually look for something that isn't the car itself. It would be able to see there's something there that's moving.
Okay. Is there any way to mount the encoder boards in line with the motor instead of the radially sort of?
I've only seen them this way, where they attach the
On the
back,
motors.
and then there's something that spins with the shaft, and then they measure. That's kind of the only kind of encoders I've ever seen.
Okay, on the MS8607, the MS8607 can do humidity all the way up to 100%. Long term, what is the highest humidity percent you would recommend for the components not to be eventually have issues?
Yeah, I mean, you don't want your stuff to oxidize. I'd say 80% usually is what most things like to live at. But if you have detailed questions about this sensor, I would actually contact TE and say, hey, here's my application. Will this sensor work well in this application? Because they have a lot more information than what's in the data sheet.
Okay. Let's go here. I think we are almost. I have multiple optional power sources. What's the best way to isolate them?
I mean, you can't really isolate all your powers. You're probably going to want to share ground, but a couple of Schottky diodes will do the job.
Okay. All right. Well, unless there's other questions that come up, that's going to be our show for tonight, everybody.
Okay.
Thank you so much, everyone. Like I said, we're going to do the thanks, and we're going to say goodbye. But for the next 14 minutes or so, we are going to play the video version of the Python on Hardware newsletter brought to you by Kattni.
We'll be hanging back here.
There's a lot going on.
We'll see you on the other side.
So I wanted to say thank you to Kara in the
Thank you,
Adafruit
Kara.
Slack behind the scenes, doing Adafruit community support and publishing. And also, Takara's an excellent author. Check out our blog.
Yes.
And you can see the author.
Yes.
I read all of our blog posts, but I also
That's right.
gravitate towards authors that have stuff that I'm like, ooh, this is good.
Yeah, she trained with you.
I don't know about that.
It's like Master Splinter
I don't know
here,
about that.
saying Leonardo has really good
Um,
ninja techniques.
And thanks everyone in the chat, and thank you everyone who's been supporting us through all this. Let's sneak in one more question.
Okay.
Question: I tried to make a PCB through JL PCB after seeing your video instead of boarded them. It worked out pretty happy results. I'm curious if you have any experience with their pick and place prototyping service or anyone else you would recommend.
I haven't tried their pick and place service, but I know other people have. Try it. People also like PCB Way. I haven't tried either of those for assembly. You do have to pick parts that are from within their libraries. It's like you just kind of have to be flexible. So you have to design your board for their assembly service. But yeah, try it out.
Okay. All right. So thank you, everybody. We'll see you next week. And here is some Python on hardware news.
Bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.
See you on the other side.
It's that time again. This is Katney with your weekly Python on hardware news. Every week, we put together the Python for Microcontrollers newsletter. It is available through adafruitdaily.com. Head over to sign up and see all of the past and current newsletters. Or tune in each week to hear what's going on. Adafruit is working with the team to safely remain open as we continue to navigate COVID-19. For more information, visit adafruit.com/opensafely. Adafruit is stocked and all orders are shipping. Expect possible delays as we continue to ramp up. Now is the best time to get orders in for your favorite products, including items for students. To find the latest Adafruit products and all of the essentials you love, visit adafruit.com. CircuitPython takes flight in Microsoft Flight Simulator. Wallaroog posts to Twitter and Hackster.io using CircuitPython with custom circuits to create a flight controller for Microsoft Flight Simulator. The author writes, "For many years, I have used and played Microsoft Flight Simulator X. In anticipation of the upcoming release of the new version, Microsoft Flight Simulator 2020, I wanted to ensure that I had the best setup ready for flight. I knew that CircuitPython had a gamepad software library that makes your CircuitPython code appear like a joystick. I had an idea that this could be hacked up easily and made to suit my purpose. CircuitPython also makes working with hardware easy." James posts the CircuitPython Clue QtBot, a higher-level CircuitPython library to allow Adafruit's Clue and ElecFreak's Microbit Smart QtBot to communicate while maintaining all of the functionality of the Clue, except for touch features. James writes, "I am a teacher of young learners, and as such the code was purposely left simple so I can use it with them. There is also a comment on nearly every line to help explain to my students what each line is doing. Video available from James Tobin on YouTube, and code available from J is for JT on GitHub." Tom Fleet posts a write-up of a 14-segment internet display by Joey Castillo. A somber scoreboard keeps real-time tabs on COVID-19 and other such adversaries, the big board of death. This project uses 21 custom HT16K33 14-segment display modules driven from an Adafruit Feather M4, which has 4 I2C buses to drive so many displays. The microcontroller is mated to an Adafruit Airlift Featherwing to connect to Wi-Fi. Data is collected via JSON format and displayed on the board. Details available at Hackster.io. The display boards are custom, and the design is available from Joey Castillo on GitHub. Antelope IT posts to GitHub the source code and design schematics for a simple telescope drive controller for a telescope with basic stepper motor drives. The controller uses an Adafruit M4 Feather Express microcontroller and the Adafruit stepper and DC motor Featherwing motor drive. The software is written in CircuitPython. BIP is a project aimed to simplify the usage of Python for interacting with IDA. Its main goals are to facilitate the usage of Python in the interactive console of IDA and for writing plugins. In a more general way, the goal is to automate the recurrent task done through the Python API. BIP is also developed for providing more object-oriented Python-like API and real documentation. It includes both the traditional API and the Hexrays API. Code available from Synactive on GitHub. In this week's CircuitPython Deep Dive livestream, Scott streamed his work on the ESP32 TLS web access and memory. Check out the latest video and past videos at adafru.it/deepdive. CircuitPython Day is September 9th, 2020. Adafruit has chosen 9/9/2020 as the snakiest day of this year. Much more to come on events and happenings to include a CircuitPython team livestream, collaboration with hardware and software folks, and highlighting all things Python and Python on hardware. It was with great sadness that the community saw the devastation of Beirut several days ago. So many residences were heavily damaged. It was a great relief to hear from our 2019 CircuitPython Day partners Lambo Labs Makerspace. Things have been quite tough these days, but so far all manageable. We did a roll call yesterday on all our maker communities. Aside from minor injuries and stitches, broken glass, broken window frames, aluminum and wood, and some broken cars, no real harm done. All the love from here in Beirut. Adafruit is dedicating CircuitPython Day 2020 to Lambo Labs and supporting NGO fundraising for the city. The Impact Lebanon fundraiser. Their focus is rebuilding lost homes, houses, historic landmarks, and affected hospitals. Campaign is available at adafru.it/impactlebanon. ANERA and Global Shapers fundraiser, an NGO which is coordinating with 12 NGOs including Red Cross Lebanon Division and Caritas. Their main goal is collecting funds to sustain the affected families until they can financially recover from the explosion. Campaign available at adafru.it/globalshapersbeirut. Do you have ideas or suggestions for CircuitPython Day? Are you planning your own CircuitPython Day event? Let us know via email at circuitpythonday@adafruit.com. In CircuitPython news, CircuitPython Clue menu can make your Adafruit Clue multifunctional by adding a nifty startup menu to select the program you want to run. You no longer need to rename your files to code or main to run them. Simply drag and drop your files onto your CircuitPy drive and this menu program does the rest. Video available on YouTube from James Tobin and code available from J is for JT on GitHub. After a long process of designing, production, and testing, the CircuitPython-compatible keyboard Featherwing from Arturo is available for sale. Check out details from Solder Party on Tindy. Toddbot posts to Twitter a video example with complete code of CircuitPython on M4 boards doing CapSense Touch I/O. MW Weinberg posts to GitHub simulating Firefly flashes with NeoPixel LEDs in CircuitPython. Nitronics posts to Twitter their second project on using Python, CircuitPython, and Adafruit Blinka on the Zinkberry to use Raspberry Pi shields with it. Mateo posts to GitHub scripts for using an ILI 9341 LCD with an Odroid XU4 in Python via Adafruit Blinka and CircuitPython. Rick Leander has written 2 new books on using CircuitPython, 10 games for the Circuit Playground Express, and Make Music with the Circuit Playground Express, 12 projects that make music, sound, and noise. In this week's episode of Microcontrollers with King or North, learn about controlling model train speed with CircuitPython and Arduino. In MicroPython news, MicroPython was accepted as an organization for Google's Season of Docs. This means that there will be a dedicated 3-month resource allocated to improving the MicroPython documentation. There is a document with the list of MicroPython's Season of Docs project ideas. The Inkplate 6 is a 6-inch e-paper device powered by an ESP32 and was recently funded on CrowdSupply. Help out with the active port of MicroPython for the Inkplate. Details on CrowdSupply. The latest TTGO watch has been released on Tindy. The watch is based on an ESP32 with a color 1.54-inch display with touchscreen. It's proven popular in the MicroPython forums with a couple of repositories created to support the device. Daniel Thompson continues to improve his MicroPython-powered WaspOS project that aims to bring a powerful, free, and open-source platform to the NRF52832-powered PineTime watch. His videos are a great way to get a sense for what is currently possible with this exciting project. Particularly cool, Daniel recently covered how the heart rate monitor feature was developed. Code is available on GitHub. MicroPython has had a couple of awesome lists, but mCausr's awesome list must be the most awesome of them all. There are a couple hundred curated links to libraries and tools, all with brief descriptions and grouped logically. Contributions are welcome. Check it out at awesome-micropython.com. The tiny Blist 840 NRF52840 module is amazingly powerful, and did we mention that it's absolutely tiny? The creator, Hoan Hoang, has continued his support for MicroPython by submitting ports for the module and for the associated development boards. Details available on CrowdSupply. BlogMyWiki posts to Twitter reading a PS2 keyboard on a microbit with MicroPython. Card10 Badge posts to Twitter using MicroPython to interact with the Card10 badge. Mark Winat posts to Twitter Conway's Game of Life on an ESP32 with MicroPython and an LCD display. Video available on YouTube and code available on GitHub. YMT Lab posts a write-up on speeding up the line rewriting of a monochrome LCD with MicroPython ESP32 using SPI communications. Marlon S. Carvalho posts to Twitter using MQTT_as over micromqtt.robust in MicroPython. Matt has published the last couple of Melbourne MicroPython Meetup news roundups. Read more about what's been happening in the MicroPython community in Australia and abroad. In Python news, Python.whl files, or wheels, are a little discussed part of Python, but they've been a boon to the installation process for Python packages. If you've installed a Python package using pip, then chances are that a wheel has made the installation faster and more efficient. In this tutorial titled What are Python Wheels and Why Should You Care?, You'll learn about what wheels are and how they compare to source distributions, how you can use wheels to control the package installation process, and how to create and distribute wheels for your own Python packages. Python T Episode 10, featuring special guest Lukasz Langa, discusses release management, typing in Python, async I/O, MIDI, and synths. Video available at twitch.tv/nnjaio. The Real Python Podcast, Episode 22, Create Cross-Platform Python GUI Apps with Beware, is hosted by Christopher Bailey with special guest Russell Keith McGee. This and previous episodes are available at realpython.com/podcast/rpp. Free Code Camp posts to YouTube Network Programming with Python course. Build a port scanner, mailing client, chat room, and DDoS. The number of CircuitPython supported microcontrollers and single-board computers continues to grow. There were no new boards added this week, but some are in the works. Are you interested in adding a new board to CircuitPython? Check out the Adafruit Learn system for a series of guides about getting your board added to CircuitPython and circuitpython.org. There are 4 new Python on hardware-related guides in the Adafruit Learn system this week, including Explore the depths of your own personal ocean. Epoxy resin, alcohol inks, sand, and seashells come together to make this magical luminous ocean experience for your wall or desk. Each piece you create will come out unique, colorful, and beautiful. Build an ocean epoxy resin light box with RGB LED matrix image scroller in this guide from Aaron St. Blaine. Everyone's streaming from Zoom to Twitch to YouTube and more. This sign will let people know not to knock on your door when you're on air. When your favorite YouTube channel is streaming, this sign will let you know in gorgeous Art Deco inspired style. You'll code it in CircuitPython, and the board's built-in Wi-Fi will allow it to check the YouTube data API to find out when a channel is live streaming. Build an RGB matrix automatic YouTube on-air sign in this guide from John Park. This project is a neon-like sign with NeoPixels in CircuitPython. It uses a LEGO-compatible baseplate and 3D printed clips to build a light-up sign. These NeoPixel strips are embedded inside a silicone diffuser, so it looks just like real neon. Build a LEGO neon NeoPixel sign with CircuitPython in this guide from Noah and Pedro. The current number of CircuitPython libraries is 266. This includes both the Adafruit CircuitPython libraries and the CircuitPython community libraries. There was one new Adafruit CircuitPython library this week, Adafruit CircuitPython Matrix Portal, one new community library, Pimoroni CircuitPython LTR559, and a number of updated libraries. As always, visit circuitpython.org/libraries to download the latest Adafruit CircuitPython bundle. Included in this week's updates from the CircuitPython team, Dan now has HCI_BLEIO working completely for Nordic UART as a peripheral. This means he can use the Bluefruit LE Connect app to talk to CircuitPython over BLE using an ESP32 coprocessor available on, for example, the M4 Airlift or the PyPortal. It is satisfying to finally see an end-to-end test working after being heads down in this code for weeks. He has a little cleanup to do, but will be submitting a PR soon. Jeff has continued working on the Sharp Memory Display PR, which was recently merged. STM32 support for SDIO was also belatedly merged after some neglect. He also did further work to reduce the memory usage on M0 boards so that we could add a new Japanese translation of the core. Melissa finally got the Matrix Portal library merged in, and now it is part of the bundle. If you're interested, you can look at it on GitHub. It has been used in a project that has a Learn guide written. You can check out John Park's on-air sign. She's been working with John Park to write a couple of additional demos for using this library, so be sure to catch John Park's workshop each week to learn more. Another big project that she's been working on is to try and get the STM32MP1 working with Blinka. She spent some time building a custom Debian image so that installing Blinka on it would be much easier. Although the image currently isn't working, she is working with an engineer on the DigiKey forums to figure out the issue, and then she can resume getting it working. In the meantime, she is working on porting the PyTFT installation from a shell script over to Python so that it will be simpler and easier to add new displays and maintain. PyCon AU is holding PyConline AU September 4th through 6th, 2020. Check out 2020.pycon.org.au for more information. PyGotham is a New York City-based eclectic Pi-centric conference covering many topics. PyGotham TV is taking place October 2nd and 3rd, 2020 with a single track of talks presented online. The call for proposals is now open at cfp.pygotham.tv. Visit 2020.pygotham.tv for more information. PyCon India 2020 will be held online from October 3rd through 5th, 2020. Visit in.pycon.org/2020 for details regarding the conference. The Hackaday Remoticon will take place everywhere November 6th through 8th, 2020. It is a weekend packed with workshops about hardware creation, held virtually for all to enjoy. Call for proposals is now open. Details available on hackaday.com. Translating CircuitPython is now easier than ever. Translations make the project more accessible to a broader range of folks. Adding or improving translations is a great way to get started contributing to the project. With the help of fellow open source project Weblate, we're making it even easier. You can create a new account just for Weblate or sign in using other sites like GitHub or Google. If you write another language, visit adafru.it/translatecp, sign in, and start translating. Looking for more Python on hardware all week? Join the Adafruit community on Discord and check out the Help with CircuitPython and CircuitPython channels. We're over 24,000 strong and continuing to grow. You'll find a supportive, positive community filled with like-minded folks. Join at adafru.it/discord. And that is your Python on hardware news for this week. Visit adafruitdaily.com to subscribe to the newsletter or tune in again next week.